You're sitting in the Saudi Arabian desert. It's November 1990. You've been away from home for 2 months. You're sleeping in a tent, eating MREs, wondering if you're going to war or just sitting in the sand forever. Then your sergeant yells, "Mail call." You jump up like someone just announced Christmas. A beat-up cardboard box with your name on it. You open it and inside there's a letter from your wife, photos of your kids, a cassette tape they recorded saying they miss you, homemade cookies that are completely crushed but you don't care. And for 10 minutes, you're not in the desert anymore. You're home. That box, that letter, that was more important to morale than any general's speech could ever be. Welcome back to Gulf War Chronicles. Today we're talking about something that doesn't involve tanks or planes or battles, but was absolutely critical to winning the war: mail. Letters from home. Care packages. The connection between 500,000 troops in the Middle East and their families 8,000 miles away. In an era before email and cell phones, before soldiers could FaceTime with their kids or text their spouses, mail was the only link to home. And the story of how America mobilized to send millions of letters and packages to troops in the desert shows something beautiful about the country during Desert Storm. The logistics of delivering mail to that many troops in a war zone were staggering. At peak deployment, there were 540,000 American service members spread across Saudi Arabia, the Persian Gulf, and eventually Iraq and Kuwait. They were in bases in the desert on ships at forward positions, and they all wanted mail. The military postal system, APO, Army Post Office, had to process and deliver millions of pieces of mail every week to people who were constantly moving. First Sergeant Dave Martinez was responsible for mail distribution in his battalion. He said mail call was sacred. Didn't matter what else was happening, training, maintenance, whatever. When mail arrived, we stopped everything and distributed it immediately. Nothing boosted morale like getting a letter from home, and nothing crushed morale like not getting mail when everyone around you did. Units would gather for mail call like it was a religious ceremony. The mail clerk would call out names. Soldiers would rush forward to grab their letters and packages. Pure joy for those who got mail, quiet disappointment for those who didn't. The letters themselves were everything. Wives and husbands writing about daily life back home. Kids drawing pictures in crayon, stick figures of mommy and daddy and come home safe. Parents telling their sons and daughters they were proud. Friends sharing gossip and news from the neighborhood. These mundane details of normal life were precious to soldiers living in abnormal circumstances. A letter about fixing the car or your daughter's soccer game reminded you that normal life existed and was waiting for you when you came home. Care packages were even better. Families would send boxes full of items troops needed or wanted. Baby wipes were gold, showers were limited, baby wipes let you clean up. Sunscreen, lip balm, foot powder, snacks, beef jerky, cookies, candy, anything that wasn't an MRE, magazines and books. Cassette tapes. This was 1991, remember, so personal music meant cassettes in a Walkman. Some families would record audio messages on cassettes. Hearing your wife's voice or your kids saying, "Hi, Daddy," was incredibly powerful. But it wasn't just families sending mail. The entire country mobilized to support the troops. Schools organized letter-writing campaigns. Elementary school kids who'd never met a soldier wrote letters and drew pictures. "Dear soldier, thank you for protecting us. Here is a picture of a tank I drew. Come home safe." These letters from complete strangers meant the world. They showed soldiers that Americans back home supported them, cared about them, were thinking about them. Operation Desert Shield Support became a massive grassroots movement. Organizations collected supplies to send to troops. Companies donated products. People held fundraisers to pay for shipping. The post office was overwhelmed with packages bound for APO addresses in Saudi Arabia. Some estimates suggest Americans sent over 10 million care packages during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. 10 million boxes full of socks and cookies and letters and love. The military encouraged this. General Schwarzkopf knew morale was critical. During the long months of Desert Shield, The build-up phase before the war started, troops were just waiting, training, preparing, but waiting. That's psychologically difficult. Mail gave them something to look forward to, a reason to go to mail call every day, a connection to the world beyond the desert. It kept them anchored to the life they'd return to eventually. There were challenges, though. Delivery times were unpredictable. A letter sent from the States might arrive in a week, or it might take a month. Sometimes mail would arrive all at once in batches, 3 weeks of letters delivered on the same day. Soldiers would read them in chronological order, piecing together the story of what had been happening at home. Other times, letters would arrive out of order. You'd get a letter saying, "Hope you got my last letter," before you got the letter it was referencing. Care packages would get damaged. The postal system was rough on boxes. They'd be thrown around, stacked, tossed from trucks. Boxes would arrive crushed, torn open, contents scattered. Cookies would be crumbs. Bottles would break. But soldiers didn't care. The fact that someone had sent them a package, had thought about them, had spent money and time putting together a box of supplies, that meant everything. They'd eat the crumbled cookies and be grateful. Some letters were heartbreaking. Dear John letters, girlfriends or wives ending relationships. These would devastate soldiers who were already under stress. There were also letters with terrible news, family members dying, houses burning down, bad situations at home that the soldier couldn't do anything about. Chain of command would sometimes intercept letters with really bad news so they could deliver it in person with support rather than having the soldier find out by reading a letter alone. The Any Soldier mail was particularly touching. These were letters and packages addressed simply to any soldier at various APO addresses. When these arrived, they'd be given to soldiers who didn't get much personal mail. Specialist Mike Henderson was one of those soldiers. Single, no girlfriend, his family wasn't great at writing letters. He'd watch other soldiers get stacks of mail and feel forgotten. Then his squad leader gave him an Any Soldier package from a 4th grade class in Ohio. 20 letters from kids, drawings, and a box of supplies they'd collected. Henderson said he cried. "I didn't even know these kids and they cared enough to send me a package. It made me feel like I mattered." Photography was huge. Families would send disposable cameras so soldiers could take pictures and send them back. Soldiers would send photos home showing where they lived, what they were doing, proof they were okay. Before smartphones and digital cameras, these physical photos were how families stayed connected visually. Parents would put photos of their soldier son or daughter on the refrigerator, look at them every day, and feel connected despite the distance. The contrast with Vietnam was stark. Vietnam veterans often talk about feeling forgotten and unsupported. Mail call in Vietnam was important, but there wasn't the national mobilization to support troops like there was in Desert Storm. The mail and care packages in '91 were partly America saying, "We're not going to treat these troops like we treated Vietnam veterans." It was a conscious effort to show support, to make sure soldiers knew they weren't forgotten. When the war actually started in January '91, mail became even more important. Soldiers were scared. Combat was real now, not just a possibility. Letters from home grounded them, reminded them what they were fighting for, not abstract concepts like democracy or oil, but their families, their loved ones, the life waiting for them when they got home. That's what you fight for when it gets real, not grand ideas, the people you love. After the 100-hour ground war ended and troops started redeploying home, soldiers would get final letters that said, "By the time you read this, you'll be on your way home." Those were bittersweet. Relief that it was over, excitement to go home, but also sadness that this intense experience was ending. The bonds formed in the desert, the shared hardship, that was ending too. The reunion scenes when troops came home were incredible. Families waiting at airports and military bases with signs and balloons and tears. Soldiers seeing their spouses and children for the first time in 6 months. Those reunions were the payoff for all those letters, all those months of separation. The letters had kept the relationships alive across the distance. Now they could be together again in person. Today, deployed soldiers can video chat with their families almost any time. Email is instant. Texting is constant. The technology has changed everything. But veterans of Desert Storm will tell you there was something special about physical mail. The anticipation of mail call, holding a letter written by your wife in her handwriting, smelling the perfume she sprayed on the envelope, opening a care package and finding homemade cookies even if they're crushed. That tactile, physical connection meant something that digital communication can't quite replicate. If you sent mail or care packages to troops during Desert Storm, or if you were a soldier who lived for mail call, leave a comment below. The mail and care package story is one of those human aspects of war that gets overshadowed by combat stories, but it was absolutely critical to morale and to winning the war. Thanks for watching Gulf War Chronicles. Letters from home didn't win battles in a direct way, but they kept soldiers' morale up, kept them connected to what they were fighting for, kept them human in an inhuman situation. The millions of Americans who wrote letters, sent care packages, and showed support through mail contributed to victory just as much as the people who built tanks or flew planes. They kept the warriors' spirits alive. That matters. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. We're telling the complete story of Desert Storm, including the quiet human moments that don't involve explosions but were just as important to the people who lived through it. I'll see you in the next one.